Sweeney. Dwayne Sweeney. Sweeney's over.
Can you please hand it over to your captain, Dwayne Sweeney?
Welcome to Real Tales with Sweens. This episode, I catch up with an old friend from high school who just so happens to be New Zealand's greatest ever Test wicket-keeper batsman, BJ Watling. BJ has played 75 Tests for New Zealand and has recently retired from a 13-year career at the top, with his final Test being the World Test Championship final versus India, where our Black Caps became official world champions. Through this podcast, we get a real look into the career of one of New Zealand cricket's most respected players. We discuss how his time working with Chris Kugelheim at Hamilton Boys High helped shape them, our memories of playing first 11 together, his introduction into the Black Caps and being sledged by Ricky Ponting. We also discuss what it was like to be at the non-strikers end during Brendon McCullum's famous Test triple century, the different leadership styles of Brendon McCullum and Kane Williamson, being a World Test champion, and so much more. As always, the show notes will be available on Instagram at Real Tales with Sweens and the website realtaleswithsweens.com. The website will have all the links to listen on your favourite platforms, as well as some awesome content from all the guests. The great people at Good George have a 15% discount available for all you listeners. Simply use the discount code REALTALES before checking out from their online store. The link to their website and all the other sponsors and supporters of the podcast are available on the realtalesofsweens.com homepage. Lastly, I want to say a special thanks to BJ for coming on, mate. It was awesome to catch up and reconnect. So join me as we get to know BJ Watling. Just sitting in the Raglan Roast studio, so there might be a little bit of background noise. Got a bit of Hamilton weather rolling in, bit of rain. But I'm sitting here with BJ Watling, so me and BJ have a bit of a history. Most of you will know that BJ was a very successful Black Cap, but we actually went to high school together, and my claim to fame in terms of my cricket is I was in the same team as BJ back in the day. But yeah, thanks very much for coming on, BJ, and yeah, firstly, congratulations on the World Test Championship. Pretty special moment for New Zealand cricket, so I'm sure you're stoked to be a part of that.
Cheers, mate. It's a pleasure to be here. Another beautiful Hamilton day. There's been a lot of rain since I've come home, but stoked to be here to have a good yarn, and appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, and we got good coffee, so that's the main thing. I suppose just to start off with, it'd be quite cool, not only for the listeners but probably for myself as well, to hear your memories of our time playing cricket together back at Boys High.
Back at Boys High, yeah. No, I remember playing with Sweeney for a bit there. I do remember you chipping away, scoring some crucial runs for us, and obviously didn't quite make the Gilly Cup team that year, but I can't remember your bowling. Was there any? Not at all.
I was like pretty much almost a specialist fielder.
Yeah.
Like I used to bat about 7 or 8. I had a ridiculous average at one stage because I just you would pretty much anchor the whole innings. Jason Perrott used to hit a few big, and Keir Betley was going pretty well at that time as well. And then I'd come in at 7 or 8 with bloody 3 or 4 overs left and get 20 off bugger all, or 30 or 40 some days, and not get out. So I had a stupid average of like 240 something, I think, at one stage.
The finisher, the Enos Doney of the team.
But no, I was I suppose my big memories of first 11 was yourself, and especially because you were, you'd never been a big guy, but you were even smaller then, and I just remember you when you first sort of came in when I first watched you go into the team, you went in before I did, but even though you're a year younger. But just watching you, you barely hit the ball off the block, but you're just so patient and just could just do exactly that, like anchor an innings and bat time really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wish I could have hit a few more sixes back in the day, but obviously being reasonably small and kind of limited. It was always a goal to, and I remember talking to Cougs about it a bit, is to try and anchor that innings, and we had some fantastic players around us, yourself, Keir, Dane McLeod, the likes.
Sam as well.
Yeah, exactly, Sam. And these guys always chipped in with runs as well at crucial times. So we had a really balanced team that could put good totals on the board that our bowlers could defend.
Yeah, I think like one of the big highlights, well, not highlights, but memories that I have is I would always be under the helmet for Anton when Anton was bowling, and yeah, he used to throw down a few half trackers back then. He could be brilliant, but then he'd always dish up a few meat pies, and I remember like ducking for cover a fair bit. But yeah, I really enjoyed that group and the guys, and especially Anton, is like fierce competitiveness, and it'll be quite cool to hear your views also on Anton, because you both had a really long career in cricket and both played at that highest level and represented New Zealand, but was a pretty special relationship. First of all, school, and then going into your professional careers.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of known Anton since I think it was a Gwyn Shield game. I was playing for South Waikato, and Devi was playing for. Can't quite remember.
I think he was.
Tarap was around then, but
yeah, Hamilton. I think he was East.
East, yeah. I feel like it
East, West, South, and North Waikato, I think.
Something like that. And I remember him being a fiery little halfback then, and he was chipping players. He was only a wee boy too, but he was chipping players left, right, and centre. And I was like, oh, who is this guy? And yeah, so I mean, since then I've got to know him, and he's obviously got that fiery side, that white line fever, and every time he's in a competition, he wants to win it. But I guess I'm the calmer approach, and I mean, I've had a huge amount of fun with him over the years, and he's had a fantastic career as well, and recently just finished up. But yeah, we've played a lot together, and we're still good mates now, and I did manage to beat him at golf over the weekend, which is another good victory.
Yeah, I imagine he doesn't take losing too well, Anton. He never did at school. And I played a lot of rugby with Anton too, but he was in the first 15 when I was there. And it's funny you talk about Gwyn Shield, because I'm pretty sure the first ever yellow card I ever got might have been for punching Anton in Gwyn Shield, like way back in '97 or something like that. But yeah, it was he's pretty fiery character and super competitive. And yeah, I guess in terms of the two of you, you're kind of the yin to the yang, and probably why you guys get on so well and have enjoyed playing cricket together over the years.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy his fire. I think he brings a bit out of you, and I'd like to think that on the flip side, I can sort of bring him down a bit if he's getting a bit too fiery. So I think, I mean, the relationship works well. I'm great mates with him, and yeah, I look forward to crossing the line every time with him, because he brings that energy, and sometimes in cricket, it certainly drags everyone along as well. So. It is a yin and yang relationship.
Yeah, and cricket is very much, well, my memories from it, which are pretty limited, but from the outside-in perspective, there's a lot of mental, and the best players you can clearly see they have very good mental strength, and being able to get involved in those tough battles and to stick it out, and it's a great characteristic of yourself. Oh, that rain's coming down hard. Not in terms of not as fiery as Anton, but you can definitely, and I think your career, people only have to watch to have watched you play or watch some highlights to see your grit and determination, and see that when it gets tough, the best stand up, and no doubt that's been a key to your success as a cricketer, and why you've had such a long career.
Yeah, I've never really looked at it like that myself. I see a situation, and whether we're on top or behind, I still like to score runs. Sometimes when we're in front, it didn't quite happen the way I'd like it to. But I think I've always just looked at the situation and what's required at the time for the team, and trying to move the game forward or save the game or whatever it might be. And that's one thing. Yeah, that I've done. I would have loved to come out there at some easy situations and smashed a few and got going. It just sometimes wasn't to be, but I do enjoy that challenge when, if we are slightly behind the game and just trying to figure that way out to get back in it somehow. And Test match cricket is you've got 5 days to do it, so you have a lot of time to figure it out. And I guess I've been lucky enough to succeed on some of those occasions.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And we'll talk about a few of those as the podcast goes on. But I do want to talk about that. We talked a little bit there about the first 11 and that Gillette Cup team. That won Gillette Cup. So for the listeners that don't know, Gillette Cup is national secondary school first 11 champions. So the best first 11 in high school in the country. Is that the first time Hamilton boys ever won that back in 2002?
Good question.
Yeah, I think it might have been. I have a feeling that it might have been.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there was one earlier when potentially Stars was around. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But it had been a while.
It's a pretty iconic moment though.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It had been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, Scotty Storis, there's a few good stories around him. He put one up on the teacher's balcony, didn't he, at Boys High?
I've heard that. I don't know how much of that is true.
That's a long hit. That's a big hit.
It is a big hit.
Especially for a school boy.
Storis can hit a big ball, but he can also exaggerate a story.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah, but I suppose from that, what was it like being a part of that team? And we've mentioned a few of the names there already of the guys that were influential in that group. What was it like for you as a year 12 or sixth former? So still another year at school, and you went on to defend the title, which is, that's an amazing feat in itself. But to win that first one, what was that like being a part of that group, and what are your memories from it?
It meant a lot. I know we'd sort of built up for that for 2 years, I reckon. And it's, the challenge for Gillette Cup is to make sure that you're in contention. We have to beat St. Paul's, the likes of Tauranga boys. And they're all knockout games, so I think to make the top 8 there was pretty special, and then to obviously get through a week's tournament down there playing the best in the country. Cougs had built up our team nicely, and we had a great environment to work from, and we were lucky enough to get the job done when we needed to. But I know for a fact that it meant a lot to the group, the whole group that was involved at the time.
Yeah. You just might have to have a reunion for that. It'll be 20 years coming up, will it? Was there a 10-year anniversary to the victory?
There wasn't. I mean, we still catch up with a lot of these boys, and good mates with Care down the road at Signature down there.
Yeah.
Shout out. And obviously Anton, Dane McLeod, myself.
Yeah. Johnny McNeil, he was in that team.
Yeah. Cam Waite.
Yeah.
Bryce Turner, saw him the other day at the Boys High Foundation, and I mean, it certainly meant a lot to the boys, and most of us are definitely still good mates now. And a reunion probably shouldn't be too far off.
Was there any real standouts in the tournament in terms of the way that guys performed individually, from your memory?
I'm trying to think. I seem to remember a lot of our boys standing up. But I know Dan Bortwood stepped up in one game. Cam Waite was influential with the ball, picking up wickets most games.
He was quick, at school.
Yeah. He was pretty gun then. I think he went on to make the New Zealand under 19 reserves maybe. Yeah. But he was definitely up there in the schoolboy stuff. I remember Dane chipping in the game, Bryce Turner taking a catch to get us through. Like there was a lot of moments, and I know these memories stick around with most of the
it's pretty
lads.
cool to hear that. You talk about guys stepping up and that kind of thing in moments, and you remember a catch from, it's nearly 20 years ago, and it's from a first 11 game, and you've done it, you've done it all in terms of cricket on an international stage, and, played for New Zealand in all formats, won a World Test Championship, but it's quite cool to hear that a moment as simple as a catch that Bryce Turner took in first 11 like resonates with you, and I get that's like a real... That's the thing that I love about sport, is there's those little moments that come along that kind of etch into your memory, and you can almost put yourself back there.
Yeah. Well, it was a pretty crucial catch because we had broken a partnership that was not looking good for us, and then we actually managed to obviously go bang, bang, bang afterwards and win the game. But that's cricket. There's little moments in the game where you take them, you're ahead, and if you miss them, then you stay behind. So, and I certainly remember that bit of fielding that kept us going.
Yeah, and I think about that from the World Test Championship final and the catch that Henry Nicholls took. going back away over his shoulder, that kind of flipped the whole momentum of that test match, and the Black Caps just came, you sort of rose to another level off the back of that, and the bowlers stepped up and the fielding improved, and then he ended up becoming World Test champions. But did that feel like a real key moment at that point in time? Out there?
Yeah. There's a lot of key moments there. I think obviously taking those first 2 wickets, and Jamo was brilliant there, getting Jara and Coley, 2 guys that could take the game away pretty easily. But then Pat definitely started to obviously play the style that he plays, and they sort of got a partnership there with Jadeja, and it could have. That game had 10 overs, 15 overs left in it, where it would have been very hard for us to have won it. So, and to be honest, that ball went up and it went pretty high.
Yeah.
And I was watching it going, he's somewhere close, but
don't really.
He's a great fielder.
Yeah.
But I had money on the ball, and the catch was fantastic.
Yeah.
It didn't look like dropping it the last 2 meters. So.
No.
But that was huge, because that could have been 20, 30 runs or another 10 overs out of the game, and it would have been all over for us. So it was pretty special.
And if anyone out there that's played cricket, you'll know what it's like when a high one goes up and you're running back and away and trying to catch it over your shoulder. Rugby's the same with a high ball. Those are the hardest ones to get because it's really hard to gauge the distance. And you would have had a few of those in your keeping career. Well, I can think of a number off the top of my head. I can't remember individual games, but I remember seeing you do it. It's a very hard skill that, when the ball's going away from you and you're chasing and trying to gauge how far away it is.
Yeah. And that would have had a bit of spin on it too, because he tried to go sort of leg side on an offside one, and it was spinning, and you've almost got too much time on those ones to think about as well. You can see it, you're running, and you've got to try and keep your eye on the ball or run at the same time. And it wasn't big blue that day, which just makes it nastier. But those aren't easy catches, and to hang on to that was huge.
Yeah, we will talk about it more, but in terms of the Black Caps, there just seems to be more and more of those moments coming in to the way the Black Caps perform. Over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years of New Zealand cricket, we seem to be creating a lot more of those match-turning moments and then being able to follow it through. And, think of Elliott's 6 that he hit at the One Day World Cup here against South Africa to win the game. Those sort of moments, there seems to be more and more of those coming through, and it's a credit to the team and the environment that you guys have built. But that must be pretty special for you to have a memory bank full of key moments like that you've been involved with a group of guys.
It is. It's nice to come out on the other end of those close games, especially. There was also one in the UAE. We won by 4 runs, I'm pretty sure, and that was a pretty intense game. But we managed to find ourselves on the winning side, and so often losing a match like that can bring you back a few notches, and it becomes tougher to win games. But we're finding ways to make sure that we're on top, and it won't always work out like that, but it's been fun while we have. That's for sure. Yeah. We actually final went the wrong way, but we still played a bloody good game of cricket. And it's hard to say that we didn't deserve to win that, to be fair. We were pretty unlucky there. So it was nice to at least win the World Test Championship. Yeah,
that 2019 World Cup final was. I don't think you could ever get a game of sport that could have so many emotions in one game. The amount of times I thought we had it wrapped up, and then I thought England had it wrapped up, and then both teams just, in the end it was a draw that went to a count back on boundaries, which that's never happened in the game of cricket. I don't think, has it?
No. There hasn't been another time.
To even draw the super over, and it's just amazing to see. A game of sport that is played over such a cricket's even a one-day game. It's a whole day. There's a lot of time, effort, moments, balls, shots that go into that to then at the end of it to be a draw. I hate to think what the odds of that happening are, but if you're a betting man, you wouldn't bet on it. That's for sure.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. You did mention Cougs through them when we were talking about that Gillette Cup team. So Cougs, for those listeners that don't know, is Chris Kugelheim. Yeah, he was the famous man that took Sir Richard Hadley's 400th wicket. He took the catch at second slip or gully.
Yeah, I was trying to think.
Yeah.
Was it the 400th or the record?
One of the two,
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Maybe the record for the
I
most
should know
or
this.
the 400.
I should know this, but yeah.
I remember him telling me at school though, and I thought he was pretty cool.
Yeah. No,
But he's been a great man and so influential in a lot of boys or men's lives through his time at Hamilton Boys High, and mine as well. I had I suppose I played cricket right up until started my 7th form year, and then I did rowing, and then went back to cricket for a few games leading into that Gillette Cup. But yeah, Cougs, he loves the game of rugby too, and he helped me immensely with kind of my mindset and just the way I thought about the game. He would always question different things and question more questions directed at myself on how I was kind of handling things, or the way I was carrying myself, or what I was focusing on, or how I was at school, and what kind of example I was setting to the younger players, and that kind of thing it meant a lot to me at a real key time of life. I think that sort of 16, 17, 18 years of age is quite an influential period of your life and what path you're kind of going to go down post school. And I know that what he did for me through that period of time definitely set me up well to go into what I did with my professional rugby career. Do you feel pretty similar to that with the way he was?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. I think Cougs had a way with kids, and teenagers, and sort of leading you into that next phase of your life. And great thinker of both games, rugby, loves it, cricket, tactically, he's always thinking of different things. But I think the main part of what he's sort of tried to build with our first 11 team there was good people, and he talks about it today, and the values that he tries to instill in you. It's bigger than actually the game of cricket, which certainly resonates with a lot of the kids there. And I mean, the work he's done has been fantastic for a huge amount of time. And I think he certainly helped me throughout those years. And to this day, I still look back at some of the poems and the quotes that he uses and how they relate to my life now. And I think he's a huge influence on the kids at Hamilton Boys High.
Yeah, Man in the Looking Glass, eh?
Yeah.
That was a big one, I remember.
Yeah.
Used to be able to quote it word for word, actually, because it became a really important part of, I guess, my kind of routine and game day routine. It was just something that Cougs basically told me to do, said it would be good for me, and I did it. And yeah, it made me think a certain way. I can't remember it, word for word now. It's been a long time since I recited it, but I should definitely look it up. If you're listening, look it up, Man in the Looking Glass. And it's a lot about self-reflection and how your actions define who you are and that kind of thing. It's a pretty powerful wee poem, and I'm sure there'd be a lot of Boys High listeners out there that will remember that one.
Yeah, they'll have it up there now.
Yeah.
They'll be reading it.
Yeah, but we had the Boys High Foundation dinner, Hamilton Old Boys Foundation dinner a couple of weeks ago now, and you were a guest speaker at that. And yeah, shout out to Seamus and Steve on Between Two Beers podcast. They had you on there as well. We really enjoyed listening to that episode, and I didn't actually realise, I did. I know what Boys High had done for me and the impact it had on my life, and a lot of my friends that went through Boys High and the number of successful people you see come out of it. With the Olympics this year, Hamilton Boys High had the most New Zealand representatives at the Olympics, so yeah, it was pretty powerful when you start thinking of that. But I didn't realise that a third of all boys in Hamilton go through Hamilton Boys High School. I was like, when they read that stat out, I kind of thought about it, and I was like, well, yeah, now I think the rolls are 2,500 boys. And when you put that into context, that's a lot of influence into the community at a key time of people's lives, like that 15, 16, 17, 18 years old before you go into what people call the real world. Yeah, it's pretty pretty formative time of your life. It's amazing, that school has that big a footprint here in our city.
Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's incredible, and Boys High was fantastic for me, and I think after retiring and calling it a day in my career, you start actually looking back and reflecting a bit, and you sort of you look throughout your years and the amount of coaches you have, influences, and Boys High definitely played a huge part in my path, and I'm certainly grateful for what I got from Boys High, because it is a fantastic school, and it's amazing you say 1/3 of the boys going through there from Boys High, and I couldn't think of a better school to be doing that.
Yeah, one thing I did the last couple of years was working in community rugby with Waikato Rugby Union, and we would run a lot of, I guess, development camps for like that under 14s, under 15s, under 16s, and under 18 age group. One thing that really stood out for me is you could always pick a boy that was from Boys High, and generally they were good rugby players, but ultimately they were good people. They would always come up, shake your hand, and the way they presented themselves, they always, be in training gear, or if they were given their team uniform, they would wear it correctly. They wouldn't have their pants half down, or their bloody shoes undone, or whatever. They just had a lot of the traits, and I think about it, all that stuff when we were teenagers at Boys High, we used to get pissed off with, like tucking your shirt in, and bloody hair wasn't allowed to touch your ears, and weren't allowed to have hair product at school, and all those kinds of things. You think it's quite controlling, but it actually teaches discipline, and it teaches a lot of good life habits and a lot of those boys, they make those teams, they become leaders in those teams. Just about every captain of every team that we ever selected was from Boys High, because he had the attributes to do it. There was other talented rugby players, very talented rugby players from other schools, but they didn't seem to have those capabilities in terms of understanding that the game of rugby was bigger than themselves, because maybe they don't have the support network at their school, or their school's not as strong, so the team is dependent on them performing rather than being a part of a group and a team like that. But there was something different about, and I could easily pick it out, and then it was pretty cool to see that and to reflect on my time there, and
respect in that. And it's certainly one thing I learned from Boys High was that discipline and that respect, and it can be a tough thing to learn sometimes, but I talked to Susan the other day, and it doesn't sound like too much has changed at Boys High, and it is a great school, and a lot of good boys have come out of there, and it's fantastic to see them all at the Olympics and doing other things as well at the foundation. Like, people make an impact on the community, don't they?
Yeah, it's amazing to see. You sit in that room at the Old Boys Foundation, and the number of different people that you cross paths with at school, and now they're running multi-million-dollar businesses, and these big building companies and all sorts. But no doubt a lot of that stems back to their time at Boys High, and the things that they learned around dealing with people. I think that's the one thing I took out of it. It taught me respect, and it taught me to be proud of where I came from. We always had pride in we were taught to have pride in our uniform and to be proud of our school. And we had a school haka, and one of the highlights of the year is the swimming sports, when you have the haka competition, and you got Chinese and Indians and Kiwis and Māoris and all sorts up there doing the haka at the top of their lungs. Like, if that doesn't show pride in your school, I don't know what does. One thing I did want to talk about was your introduction to the Black Caps. So everyone knows you as being the wicket-keeper batsman that you were for New Zealand for such a long period of time, well over 10 years. But it didn't start there. You started in probably the one form of cricket that most people would say wouldn't agree with you, and that was T20. Your first introduction to the Black Caps was through the T20 side. Can you talk to me about that and how that came about?
So my first tour actually that I was selected for was a one-day tour of the UAE, and part of that was the T20s. And back in the day there, T20s were just starting out, so it was kind of one squad for all.
This back in 2009, eh?
Yeah, 2009. And so I think I was there mainly for the one days, and I was definitely as cover. So I watched the boys get a pretty impressive series win against Pakistan, 2-1, and Baz scored a lot of runs that trip. But the one-day series actually broke us because we ended up having about 4 or 5 players that were injured. And so for the 2020 series, we were actually out of players. And I managed to get a call up and do the keeping there. And yeah, certainly struggled with the bat. I remember that. It was completely different conditions to what we were used to at home. But yeah, it was. I think it wasn't by choice, but I sort of filled in there and managed to get a T20 debut, and I didn't play too many more after that, to be fair.
Yeah. So you talk about that there. Did you really feel out of your depth in that scenario, like before you went out there, or when you were out there, or anything, or were you confident to step in?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was reasonably confident. Their bowlers, the wickets, completely different. I think Shahid Afridi was bowling these sort of skiddy leg spinners, and the odd one would turn a little bit, and it was a bit of a shock, just the level. But I remember finishing that tour and having learnt a huge amount and kind of figured out where you need to be able to play at this level. So in terms of the learnings I got from it, it was great. I knew that I had to step up more. There's a lot to work on. And yeah, I mean, you have to be put in those situations to make mistakes, to fail, and then come up with a solution so you can get better. So grateful for the opportunity. And we were lucky enough we managed to play Pakistan in my test debut not too much longer after that. And you kind of had an idea of what might be coming. So yeah. I mean, sometimes you kind of want those awkward, horrible situations where you might feel out of your depth, but then it's up to you to get better afterwards.
Yeah, and clearly part of your, or a big part of your career was handling those situations. Brendon McCullum talked about it on the podcast I did with him, and they made the joke that there was a bit of a running inside joke within the team that if the team was going well and you went out to bat, you generally wouldn't score, but if the team really needed it, that was when you would step up. You just seemed to enjoy that fight, enjoy that pressure. And hearing you say that in terms of how you felt in that T20 environment on debut, and like it was clearly all about, okay, yep, I've learnt something here, where not a lot of people can think that way, especially when you fail. It's quite hard. People see things as failure, and other people see them as opportunities to learn. And clearly, the way that you're wired and the way that you think is about the learnings and about what you can take out of it and process to move forward.
Yeah, I think that especially for New Zealand cricket, we certainly don't have the resources to be sending players to India to train over there and get used to these types of conditions. So often it is going there for the first time and making sure that you get as much information as you can to succeed. The next time you go over there, you make sure that you're better and you've learnt from the mistakes in the past. And it's one thing as a team that we've talked about throughout Baz's captaincy. Now we're into Kane's captaincy, and it's the same thing. It is literally trying to take, because cricket is a fickle game. Like, you can have runs of no scores for a long time and then get yourself going again. You just have to pick yourself up. If you can't pick yourself up, it's just a downhill slide. So it's certainly one thing that we talk about as a team, and I know myself individually, it is about getting better each time, because different situations, different conditions, you get hit with a bit of everything in cricket, and you've got to take as much learning as you can from each time.
Yeah, so you talk about that there and going to India and then, learning something and then processing that and, getting better to go back again. But a lot of the times you don't actually get to do it again until you go back again, right? It's a lot of, I suppose, thought that goes into it, and you're thinking about how that felt, what it kind of looked like and that kind of thing. But there's not a lot of, you can't really action that in New Zealand, can you, in terms of the conditions?
No. to be fair, we've managed to get some good practice facilities up that can replicate a bit of spin and things like that. So we've definitely made gains in that front. So if we're going a trip to the subcontinent, we'll have wickets that turn, and they won't be exactly the same because a Bangalore wicket will be different to a Chennai wicket, etc. So they're all different in their own right. But I guess having those learnings, having the foundations to work from, we can get better. Because obviously India dominate in their conditions, and so do the likes of Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh have just been Australia, and so I think when you put in those situations, you've got to try to take as much as you can and try your best to figure out a situation here and create some spinning wickets in different situations.
In terms of like the resource here in New Zealand, like we clearly don't have the resources of these other, I guess, power nations of cricket, but now we sit at the top with a World Test Championship and champions, and probably, if I think about it from an outsider point of view, looking in, if we were going to win a world title, I would have thought maybe T20 or one dayers would be where we would kind of fit in, but we've been been extremely close in the one day World Cups, and we've made semi-finals for as long as I can remember, and we've been right up there in that respect. But to win the first ever World Test Championship, when with different, like, we are under resourced, our players get paid a lot less than like the likes of England and Australia and India and things like that. Do you think, and you talk about being able to take those learnings and the group working together to develop, do you think the IPL has played a huge part in New Zealand's development, or with our players getting that opportunity to be amongst these, the guys from England and Aussie, and play alongside them, and then play in the Indian conditions and play with these real superstars of the game?
I think so. We've got a lot of players that actually are able to play in the IPL, and New Zealand cricket's allowed these guys to keep developing. And the likes of Kane, he's interacting with Virat, MS Dhoni, I know Satner plays for Chennai. Like, these types of situations are huge for us, getting to understand how different nations operate, getting to talk to the Aussies while they're over there. Like, it is fantastic, and it's certainly growing the development around our players. And now a lot of New Zealanders are getting opportunities in these types of leagues, the 100 at the moment. We've got a lot of Kiwis over there. So I think it shows the improvements that we've made over the last 10 years, and I think finally other nations are seeing that too and going, actually, these Kiwis aren't too bad, eh? Let's get them involved, and that can only be good for New Zealand cricket.
Yeah,
guys playing in these different conditions all year round. That's how you get better at playing overseas, and we've started to do that reasonably well, I reckon, over the last few years. And there's still a few challenges we'd like to get over, the likes of India and India, the likes of Aussie and Aussie, which is sad to say we had the chance there, but it is fantastic for the growth of the game. But you talk about under resources. We've now got a marquee at the Mount, which is massive. I haven't quite been in there fully when it's been running, but it looks amazing. Got one in Lincoln that's been running for the last 5 years, and these types of facilities are massive for us in terms of getting that grass time, grass surfaces, spinning wickets, things like that. And not only the Black Caps get to use it, it's the White Ferns as well, and the associations, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I guess that, to me, shows the character of guys that are going to these leagues as well, in terms of them as people being able to come back and share their learnings down into the group. And I think of guys like Southey, Bolt, Satner, these guys that are playing in these leagues all the time, McCullum, and now McCullum's coaching and involved in that. But clearly that they're of good ilk and they're good people, because New Zealand wouldn't be getting better if it wasn't for them coming back and helping to develop the players around them. Is that just kind of the way we are as Kiwis, and those guys that are so influential in our game and the way the Black Caps perform, is that the sort of character that's in that group?
100%, yeah. I can sort of speak for the Test team over the last few years, but these guys come back and they share their experiences, and that's exactly what you want. You want people sharing the experiences. They're not afraid to talk to the Kyle Jamieson who's coming in and dominating, and you'll go, oh, how's my spot going? The guys like Trent and Tim and Wags, I mean, they're happy to talk to Jamo. Jamo's happy to share his experiences, and that's, I guess, how you create a team, and that's how you create a team of learning. And the boys do it fantastically well. It is a great environment to be a part of. And, I ask Kane for advice all the time, and he asks me, and these conversations are happening throughout, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah. Cool, so we're back. We got a little bit of rain fade from the Hamilton weather, and it sort of dropped out on us. But yeah, we were just yarning beach in terms of that. I did want to talk about like the leadership side of it, and we've mentioned both, Kane and Baz in this podcast. But just in terms of Baz and that time that he came in, to be captain and playing with that positive, sort of energy in the way that he plays the game, and then how that kind of, he wanted the team to play, if in doubt, play the positive option or from a positive mindset. Like you were a part of that, and you're a part of that transition in that time period. What was that like to be involved with? Yeah.
I mean, Baz, he would often talk a lot about that fearlessness, and he played it in his own style. And the thing that he created within the group was that confidence. He showed trust in players. It wasn't like, especially for me, it wasn't about going out there and sort of wahooing it, but it was about being confident in myself and trusting my game plan and my style. And it just created an attitude where it was positive, basically, and we were going to take the positive options and run around the field, charge around the field, and show a bit of a presence. And you could see that shift sort of start to happen around that time with Baz and Hess and Mike Sandel. And I know Baz made a sort of a point of going downstairs in the lobby somewhere, and he'd see guys come in and have a yarn and get to know players. And he created a lot of trust through doing simple things like that. We also, it allowed guys to have a bit of freedom and to not feel tense the whole time. Like every innings was going to be my last, and that was a massive shift for us heading into just getting better. And I think the whole group did that reasonably well.
Yeah, it's quite cool hearing that in terms of that, sticking with teams for players, allowing them to learn and fail and to spend more time in the environment and build a team in an environment not being so kind of cutthroat. I think in New Zealand rugby we are really cutthroat because we just have so much depth that basically you got to turn up in front, and as soon as you don't, you literally, your numbers up. It's quite a common thing you see in terms of rugby because we just have so much depth. And we could almost name 3 All Black sides, right, to go out there and play, and they're going to compete in, if not just compete, like dominate world rugby. They're going to dominate most of the teams. But, hearing that in terms of cricket, it kind of shows that, cricket needed that. It needed guys to be able to build some confidence, to build camaraderie, because we're going to be a dominant world force like we are now in terms of cricket because of our culture, because of our team, because we play cricket like Kiwis. We don't play it any other way. So it's it's pretty cool to hear that from an outsider point of view, how much that camaraderie and that team means to you guys. Yeah.
Well, it allowed us to get to know each other and become a team. And I think that's held us in good stead for the last 10 years or 8 years at least now. And we've still got these guys who now have played 50 or 60 tests. And new guys come in, but they're learning from guys that have played a lot of test cricket. And it was the same for me. I had Baz, I had Dan, I had Chris Martin, guys like this to learn off. It was epic. But I think the way that we've sort of created that consistent selection, guys have opportunities and they don't feel like they're going to get dropped every time, has definitely helped. And just, talk about depth in rugby. There actually, the way cricket's going now with the 3 formats and we've got guys overseas everywhere. New Zealand cricket right now has a huge amount of depth, and we've thrown a younger team out to Bangladesh and Pakistan for a series over there. And I look at that team and go, there's this fantastic team. We've got some great young players coming through, and that's with half of our more experienced guys not going there. So New Zealand cricket is in a very good situation at the moment.
Yeah, that's cool, and it's cool to see that, like the likes of those players going off to the IPL and coming back and sharing their knowledge. And you look at the group of guys that are involved now, those young guys. How cool is it for them to be able to play, like you mentioned there? Like you got to join the team when Baz and Dan Vittori and that were in there. Like that would have been pretty special for you. You would have watched those guys for a long time before you're in that environment. And it's pretty cool now that these guys coming through have got, we've got Trent, Tim, like they sit in the top 5 bowlers in the world consistently, like year in, year out. Then we've got Kane and Ross Taylor and, players like yourself, just before you retired as well, that have had these really long, successful careers. And then it's cool that these younger guys can come in and learn from guys at, the peak and at the top of their game. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Talk about their depth too. Sorry, I talked about this on Baz's podcast, but the team that played England, like in the second test before your guys' Test Championship, when I saw that team, the sheet go up, I was just like, oh yeah, we're clearly resting a few. Like, but it still looked strong. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't think like, oh, that's a bunny team. I was still like, well, it's still a pretty good team. And then they just went out and handed it to England in their conditions, like multi-million-dollar players all through that England team. And the boys gave them a good old touch-up. That, for me, was when that happened, I thought, oh, we're a real chance of winning this World Test Championship. When you think of that, I think of the best teams I've played in, that internal pressure that creates good results when there's guys nipping at your heels. And as long as you've got that team culture where you're willing to work alongside each other, which clearly the Black Caps has, from listening to you and to Baz, like that, that creates success.
Well, I mean, perfect examples. Matt Henry, who's been around for yonks now. I'm not sure how many tests he's managed, but 13 or 14, and he's sort of been on the back burner behind the likes of Trent and Tim, and then obviously Kyle jumped in front of him. But I mean, his attitude is amazing, and he does not falter. He does not go up or down. He just stays the same, and he turned up that game and just bowled brilliantly. Took their top order apart and put us into a winning position, but didn't make the final team. And he was, I wouldn't say he was happy as, but he was determined to obviously make that team. Don't get me wrong there, but his attitude after that is,
you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. And this he's on every trip and he's just biting at everyone's heels. Can't quite get a long stint in the team, and that's due to the quality that we have. But I mean, his attitude was just fantastic, and I hope a lot of guys look at that and go, well, that's kind of where we want to be. And I know I certainly look at him and go, that's the attitude that I would love to have.
Yeah, you mentioned him there, and he's almost somebody that you forget about at times because Bolt and Southey, they've been so good for so long, and then they go on these crazy purple patches of form where they just tear teams apart, and then one of them rests or has some time out or gets injured or something, and then Matt Henry comes in and then he just tears teams apart. So that's like clearly just a testament to his character and what he's like as a person, because you can't come in and just perform straight off the bat without having that time in the saddle if you don't have the right attitude. Well, yeah, how long's he been involved in the team now? Like a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he played in the 2015 World Cup semi-final, wasn't in the squad, came in for the last couple of games and performed brilliantly straight away. And I'm trying to think when he first, but I mean,
so that's 5-6 years ago.
8-9 years, I reckon he's been around, and he's getting better every year too. And it's just, we have good depth in our bowling there, and we'll get a sight of some of the younger fellas in these next couple of tours.
That's pretty exciting. One thing I did want to talk about was your double century at Bay Oval. So that, I remember I watched a lot of that innings. Good time of year, summer, Been over at the Mount, like that. How awesome is that venue? First of all, like having that there over at the Mount.
Yeah. I mean, that was the first Test match at the Mount, and
was that the first one there?
Yeah. We'd obviously played a few games for ND out on the block there, and it's a fantastic ground. I certainly love going to the Mount itself, but the cricket venue there is amazing. There's now a marquee there with 30 odd indoor wickets, so it's going to be a fantastic place to develop players and have some training, especially with the weather the way it is around New Zealand. So it's going to be awesome down there, and it's a great spot. That was a pretty cool Test match to be involved in, the first one there. And
So in terms of that innings, like, what talk me through it. What was it like? What were did you know that was coming? Like, I know sometimes with rugby at certain moments, I knew when I was going to have a good game. Like, I just had this kind of feeling deep down inside that I was like, I'm going to be on tonight or today or whatever, whenever I was playing. But did you have a feeling going into that game?
Definitely not. No. I guess we didn't really know what to expect from the wicket itself. And, we know that England's a tough opposition. And I would like to have thought more positively throughout my career, but often cricket sort of brings you back down quite quickly. So I mean, I felt good in the nets. I felt like I was prepared, and I guess leading into games, that's what I was after, was to feel like I had the right game plan for the right situations. And if I was feeling good in the nets, then I'd given myself the best opportunity. And sometimes cricket doesn't quite work out like that, but it sort of managed to that day. And it was a funny game because they were kind of dominating after day one, and we'd sort of wanted to bat first as well, and it was a decent wicket, and we'd come back that morning and sort of clean them up reasonably cheaply, 350 odd, and we knew we'd sort of got ourselves back into the game there, because I think if England wasn't the flip side there, they would have wanted 500 in that first innings, so to bowl them out for 350 was massive, and we managed to scrap our way to a pretty big total. And I remember I had it was a good partnership with Satner, and it was great fun watching him go about his work, because he'd sort of been threatening for a long time to get that big score, and he gutsed out some tough spells, got in the gloves, was sort of wearing it on the body, and he kept gutsing it out, and then he got flying at one point, and it was amazing to watch, because he's got a lovely arc of the ball. And,
he's got some beautiful shots, eh?
And I had great fun out there with him getting his maiden Test century, and I was pretty stoked.
Did he get 150 in the end, or close to it?
Yeah, he got about, I reckon it's 130 odd. It was reasonably big, and Satner played some good golf, and he got some golf swings out.
He put a few big ones on the bank. It
was nice to be on top for that game.
And how special was it, like, talking about then, talking about moments and partnerships and stuff? So you were a big part of, I call it the innings that stopped the nation. So Baz's 300, you had like a huge, I don't know how long you two batted together for, like was it a day basically, or longer?
I think so. I can't remember the detail. I think Baz must have batted for close to 10, 11 hours himself. So maybe 6 or 7.
So what was that like being at the other end? Because it was a very un-Brendon McCullum like innings. Like I said to him on his podcast, if he got 300, I would say Brendon McCullum scored a Test match triple century off 160 balls, or that's how you would kind of picture it. But I don't know, he faced 580 odd balls or something like that. Very un-Brendon McCullum. Like, he scored a double century in the first Test at Eden Park off bugger all balls. So a real Brendon McCullum like innings, and then to go down to the Basin Reserve in a whole lot of trouble, and you and Baz at the crease. Like, what was that like? What was your experience from being there for such a long period of time with him?
I mean, firstly, a fantastic innings from Baz. I think you're right in saying it probably wasn't his usual type of innings.
There's a lot of glimpses of him smashing it though.
Yeah. I remember having a conversation to him when he was on 195, No, he actually was. It was afterwards because he just went, "Boof, 6. I'll take my 200, thanks." I just sort of went down there and just went, "Yep, that's played, boy. Nice, good job." And now start again, eh? Start again. We've got a long way to go. I don't know what we were, maybe 50 runs ahead or something.
Yeah.
So I remember the conversations, and it was literally about just getting through each over, getting through each session, just taking it sort of in small steps. And the focus he had that day was amazing because he had to rein himself in, but he didn't do it too much so that he wasn't as free as he'd like to be. So he's still able to play a couple of nice cut shots, a couple of nice pull shots, and he just picked his moments brilliantly. But you could see the focus was literally, I'm going to turn this position of trouble into something that we can obviously draw the match because we're trying to win the series or give ourselves a chance to win it. And reflecting, it was pretty cool to play a small part in that.
Yeah, no, and he spoke about it on his, like, New Zealand at that point in time had been a team that could go out and, kind of run away with it like did in the first test with the way that he played and with his kind of influence, I guess, on the group, where the team could turn up and fucking spank it one day and win. But we hadn't really at that point in time shown that we could guts it out and really grit and fight. And I think I cut a clip out of it and put up on Instagram where he spoke about that, and he just, like, he had this feeling that the country needed to see the Black Caps just grit their teeth and really fight and be hard to beat. And I think about it I think all of us as Kiwis, we don't necessarily care if we win or lose as long as we're hard to beat and we just fight and we're tough. And I think that's why we are as successful as we are on a world stage with sport, because that's kind of our mentality. Is that did you have that kind of feeling as well?
Yeah, I mean, we hadn't won a huge amount of Test cricket then, so we just won the first game against them, which was a very good game in itself. We won by 40 runs, and that was a fantastic Test match for us. So I think, I certainly know my mindset was like, we're not going to give this up. We're going to try and fucking
win the series.
Yeah, we're going to try and win the series or not lose it. So, like, that was the fight in me, and Baz was obviously thinking along similar lines, and it was a good wicket. Like, the wicket wasn't quite how we played up to that point, and it was literally about taking it an over at a time and trying to get ourselves back in this test to not lose a series. And yeah, I mean, it was great to get the draw, and I think he ended up sending them out there for 250. We had a lead of 250, and we tried to win the thing. And Virat nicked one early on in his innings, and it wasn't given, and there was no reviews back then.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, he showed us the attitude was, we're not just going to draw this now, we're on top. Let's have a crack at them. It was a cool test match to be a part of, and it showed a little point where we were moving forward and we were moving in the right direction. Yeah.
And then, because what did you score in that test?
120 odd, yeah.
Yeah.
About
and then
320 balls or something.
Yeah. And then Jimmy Neesham come in and on debut and gets 100 as well. Like, but it shows that when you grit and fight for as long as you and Baz did, the position that you can put the other team into, like it, I think a lot of us don't think about that enough when we watch Test cricket. Like, if we're not kind of in the know or the knowledge of it, and it's probably something that I've started to think more about as I've got a bit older and a bit wiser when I'm watching as a fan. But that must be such a punish for those bowlers to run in over and over for no reward because you just don't give them an opportunity and a chance because you're just patient and because that's a lot of it, right? Like, you cricketers you're at the top of your game, you're the best, like on your day you're the best player in the world. That a lot of Test cricket is just not giving an opportunity to the opposition, just staying patient in your process and gritting your teeth and sticking it out.
Yeah. Well, I think Zahir Khan bowled 51 overs that innings. I think he got 550 or 51 overs, something like that. That's an incredible amount of overs for a fast bowler to be bowling. And yeah, that's what Test cricket is. If you can take a bowler into their third, fourth, fifth spells of a Test match, they're going to be sore. They're going to be hurting. And often that's when you can cash in, score some runs a bit more freely. And that's what we managed to do that game. I remember they had to resort to, I don't know if MS Dhoni bowled or if it was Virat. I'm trying to think, but it was one of them, and you're on top of them when these guys are coming on to try and
just give
snare
someone a
wicket.
break.
Yeah, give someone a breather. And I think most tests you're attempting to do that, but it's not always as easy as that.
Always the case there. That Baz talked about it. He mentioned that he didn't really eat much during a test match. Like, were you similar? Like, because I know when I played sports, especially when I was younger, like I'd never ate a lot, like, because I'd get anxious and nervous and that, and I think that's natural. It's normal. It's human nature. And even right through my career, like, I would have breakfast, and that was generally about it. Even if I played at night time, I ate bugger all after a sort of big scrambled egg brekkie, and that would be about me for the day, and I'd just sip away on water and Powerade and coffees. But yeah, did you used to eat much?
Not really, no.
Not really?
No, I wouldn't recommend it because I also played a few games where I cramped up pretty badly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those nerves and it's often didn't feel like lunch if I was batting or the game was getting a bit tight and you have that queasy sort of feeling. But definitely didn't eat too much that test match and sort of lived on coffees and
darts.
And we talked about just getting through to tea and we'd get our coffee and dart and go again after that. And it was a pretty simple process, and I wouldn't recommend this to anyone, but I didn't eat a huge amount through my playing days. And
that kind of shows me, though, it's like each to their own, right? Like, you can there's all these sports scientists out there and nutritionists that say you have to do X, Y, Z to perform, but probably the greatest ever partnership of New Zealand cricket. You're living off darts and coffee. Like, how cool's that? But it worked. It worked for you guys, and I think that it is what it is, right? And everybody, I've played some of the best games I've played. I've had terrible lead ups to, and maybe because of that, I was more alert and heightened to the situation, and then had gone out there and performed well, but I'm not really sure. I don't know. Like, if anyone can work out the human brain or how we perform in key moments, I think they'll be worth a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of it's just about yourself feeling confident, prepared, and potentially that routine that you go through. And if you can complete that every time, and your mindset's in a position where you can perform, then often, once you've done all the work to get to there, then often it's the mindset that can take you over the edge and make sure that you perform on that particular day. It's huge at sport, I reckon. It's just that if you yourself feel confident, then you go out there and you get it.
That talking about that, like cricket, there's a lot of superstitions, and are you very superstitious, or routines that cross into superstition?
Yeah, maybe guys might say different, but no superstitions.
Yeah.
I guess I had my certain routines and quirks and how I went about things, but my area is an absolute shambles. I'd take up half the shed just with keeping stuff over there, and didn't have to put a pad on first. It just whatever was going for the day, and I like to put a lot of focus on sort of. I tried to when I was out there was when I was going to get focused, but ended up pretty much living the whole game, which is not ideal. You feel quite drained by the end of 5 days of thinking. But I wasn't a superstitious guy, but I reckon I had my routines, and my preparation was always, I'd stay pretty true to what I wanted to achieve in preparation, so I felt ready for the game. If I needed to hit more balls to feel the way I needed to, then I'd try hit more balls. If I didn't, then I could pull out of it. So
that's interesting, because I with my rugby career, when I was goal kick and that, and when I was younger, I used to just kick, and like, even if I was kicking shit, I would kick more to get out, try and get out of it. It just made it worse, and my hips are probably screwed because of it. But when I went to Japan, like, I was just like, I don't know, a little bit I think was the work I did with DG, so Dave Galbraith, and it was all around the power of the mind and mindset and being confident and that kind of thing, and living in a place of courage and knowing that you're good enough, and what you've done is put you in a position to do what you need to do and achieve and that kind of thing. And I remember I would just like the best year I ever I kicked over 90% one year, and a couple of games I kicked 16 for 16, and we're winning comfortably. We're playing some pretty subpar teams and putting 80 points and that sort of thing on top of them. But I would literally do post-captain's run. I used to have a routine where I would do 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly about 18 to 25 kicks, depending how I kind of felt. Was what I used to do back in the day, and that I had to put that on me because I was doing more than that. So that was my first restriction, to get it to that much. And then it got to the point where I would have 2, probably. If I was hitting them good, sweet, bin it. If I hit the first one like shit, then I'd be like, well, okay, I'll give it one more go, hit the next one like shit, I'll just stop, because I'm like, I'm not going to achieve anything out of this. I'm clearly not in the right headspace, or my body's not feeling right. And it'd be the same pre-game. I'd put the ball down 5 in from touch, just behind the 22, on the left-hand side. The reason it was the left-hand side was because it was the closest side to the changing room of our home ground in Japan. So that was where I did it. Put it down there, hit the first one. If I hit it sweet, that would be me, done. If I didn't hit it that good, I'd give it one more chance. If I hit it sweet, done. If I didn't, oh well, that's it. And then I just tell myself, oh, you've done it 1,000 times. Like you can do it when it counts. And that was literally it. And then I'd go, and then I was out and, like, I don't know if there was anything to it, or it was just I just got lucky for a whole season. But I suppose that having that power of that, having that self-confidence and knowing that you've put the work in over years of preparation, that you can, just trust yourself and just let it go and just kind of feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I was that good. There was moments where I could sort of shorten my trainings but we do like to hit a lot of balls. We do like, I guess it's cricket. Like, the conditions are so different sometimes. The surface might be a low, slow one, and you just want to feel like your positions are good for that surface, and then it might be a fast bouncing one at Perth, and you're like trying to get good positions for that type of surface. There's so many different variables around cricket that keep you kind of on your toes. Like, I don't think you can ever feel super comfortable, but I like to feel like I was ready for that particular game or that particular surface. And, sometimes it was shorter, sometimes it was definitely a bit longer, and the coaches would start to get a bit twitchy. But I just wanted to feel like I was ready, and then often the night's sleep would be better, and you just feel a lot more confident going into day one.
One thing I did want to talk, and this is something I think about a lot as an athlete and someone that played rugby and know what goes into preparing the body and getting ready and that sort of thing. It blows my mind, and I want to know how you do it. But in terms of cricket, you can stand around the field and not sprint for a long period of time, and then someone belts one past you in the covers, and you got to, you're under Brendon McCullum's captaincy, or you're a black cap now, and that's what you do. You got to sprint all the way to the boundary. How come more dudes don't do hamstrings? Is there a way that you keep warm? Because I know if I just went out there now and, it's probably not the best scenario now because we've been sitting here talking shit, but if I was in that same sort of position and then I just went hell for leather, I'd be a pretty high risk of kind of injuring something. Or is there just a way that you stay warm throughout between balls and that kind of thing?
No, I know the bowlers, they'll get a call, you're about to bowl, and they'll start doing some stretches and warming up a bit and getting their body moving for a bowling spell. But often it's the middle of summer, you're walking around, so you're always standing, you jog between overs, so I don't think you actually end up getting too cold. It's not like you're sort of stuck in that one position, so you jog between the overs and you end up somewhere else and off your sprint. And generally we don't have too many issues. I know Baz pulled a hamstring against England sometime maybe, but that's because he went mental after every ball and went flying into the advertising boards every time, and he was bound to do something at some point. But I'm moving the whole time and squatting, so I'll always stay warm. I think it's the summer, and you're actually sweating the whole time kind of anyway, and often it's in India and it's really warm, or
When I think about that, like definitely warming up in in the early part of the season when you're training through summer, it's pretty easy to get the body going.
Yeah, and feel relaxed and loose.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, Chris has done a fantastic job over the last 10 years that he's been involved, Chris Donaldson.
Yeah.
And the boys have a good base to work from now, and it's strong and fit and able to handle conditions like 40 degrees in Dubai and things like that. And that's throughout the 10 years that he's been involved. He's created an environment where the boys are actually strong and ready to go every time.
Yeah.
And we haven't had too many major issues over
Yeah.
the years.
Oh, that's cool. So in terms of like that, I suppose you mentioned before about living the whole game and being kind of in the moment and how mentally taxing that is. Like I talked to this with Baz as well, and I think maybe with Timmy Seifert too. Like that cricket to me is like you guys must be just so good at being able to switch on, switch off throughout a game because but maybe you not so much. But like 5 days of concentrating is like that's like to me that's impossible. And I think of 80 minutes like that in terms of rugby, and it's something that I used to tell. As I got a bit older and further into my career and became like a leader and captain, that it was just like you got to be able to switch on, switch off. So when we get an injury break, when we get a stoppage in play, you got to be able to just take a breath, like just disconnect your mind out of the game almost, and just be like, all right, and then just refocus on, okay, what's my next task, and just go one task at a time. Because if you think too far ahead or too much of what's gone before you, you can't mentally sustain that level of intensity for too long. Like by listening to you, were you?
It was always a work on. I think leading into batting, when I batted 7 was great because you had sort of 3 wickets before you had to pad up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I started to switch on and start to get ready to bat. And it was literally those 2 wickets before I had to bat. I might start switching on a bit more and starting to think about the game or about batting. How am I going to approach this? And you sort of work yourself up there. But generally during the game, once you're in the moment, cricket, I found it reasonably easy to face the ball.
Yep.
And then switch off.
The worst thing was being up
real quickly on and off.
House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like bang, this happened there, and then I could walk away from it and kind of block whatever some people might be saying and move on to the next one, because you had to do that with keeping basically.
Yeah.
Watch the ball, boom, go out there, have a yarn to Roscoe, have a yarn to Timmy, and then go again. I'm certainly not the best at it, but I was able to do it once I was out there and feeling more confident. But watching the game was not my strong point. Nah. I didn't really enjoy watching the game. I'd watch every test match in the changing room just to get out of the crowd. So at least I wasn't hearing too much noise from the crowd and being out there. It didn't feel like I was out in the game. I felt like I was doing something else.
Like disconnected from
it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I disconnected from those situations.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty interesting, because I think about that from my point of view. When I remember I'd have these moments if I was on the bench and I'd watch, and like the game would almost look, from being there live, like right on the sideline, it would almost look like superhuman to me. And I'd just watch, and I remember like early on in my career, and even as I got a little bit further into my career, like watching and thinking like, oh my God. And it almost talked myself out of being able to perform out there, because I'd be like, oh man, like I would see one of my teammates do something really well and they're like, oh, I could never do that. But, I did it weekly or whatever. It was just something that we were trained to do, and I'd done it. And if I was out there, it was never something I thought about. It would just instinctually happen. I'd just play the game. But yes, like watching, especially early on, I used to like almost psych myself out of it and get way too caught in the moment or anxious about it. And then, DG was a part of that for me too. Like our mental skills coaches, he's like, because I'd just say, oh man, I get this like weird feeling that they look like superhuman. He's like, they're your mates. You train with them every day. Yeah. And then he's like, he goes, just look for opportunities. Like just sit there and look and go, okay, what would you do? Like, where's the space? What are you seeing? Like, what are you going to do when you get out there? And then, as soon as I got that mindset, it was a lot easier for me to sit on the bench and to watch. But leading into that, I remember, especially early on. But I think that's experience, right? As you get a bit older, you learn to process things differently.
I never enjoyed a balcony in the game. I liked.
Yeah, you always see the bowlers out there, eh? You don't
You
really.
spend so much time out in the middle and with the crowd, and some of these crowds in India, they're just screaming. You almost have this buzz in your head anyway. So I try to get away from that as much as I could before I was batting or after I was batting, and then switching on when you're crossing the line is kind of how I try to approach it. But definitely an overthinker here. Thought way too much about the game.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I've always had like a routine, like left sock on first, left boot on, all that kind of thing. Even when I put my undies on, I put my left leg in first, and I think I do it in life now as well, just because it became, sort of a habit and ritual. But I do my, in the sheds is always like left everything first and tie my boots a certain way, and then mouth guard in the sock for the warm up, and I put that on when I got on the field. And maybe one of the boys at club rugby asked me, they're like, why do you do it? They must have been watching, and they're like, you get dressed the exact same way all the time, and you do the same thing, and you do the same 4 stretches before you go out of the shed. And I was like, I don't know, just guess it's like my routine, and then I'm here to kind of switch on and play. And the boys were like, oh yeah, that's the other thing you mentioned. He was like, oh, do you do this like what do you do when you play for the Chiefs or for Waikato and that kind of thing? I was like, oh, exactly the same. And he was like, oh, I thought you'd just like, because you're only playing for Morrisville, you just do whatever and then just turn up. I guess I was doing it because I always wanted to give my best effort to whatever team that I was playing for. So that was my way of like ticking the box that I'm here to play, and I'm going to give the exact same effort as if I was putting on a Chiefs jersey or a Waikato rugby jersey.
Yeah,
so
it's a discipline that you've stuck to, and you're not going to let that slide. For doesn't matter what level you're playing, you're turning up ready to go and play the game, and it's sort of a sign of discipline, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though it might be superstitious as well. It kind of shows, a
bit of a routine.
I'm not here to muck around here.
Yeah. How did you find that going between? You would have still been playing like a bit of club cricket and that throughout your international career at different times?
Not so much the club stuff. We came home and we had a lot of ND cricket.
Oh, yeah.
Played a few games for Hamilton.
Yeah.
A few Hawke Cup challenges in between.
Well, I suppose
times.
That's a level, isn't it? Yeah.
But it was always, same thing. Like every time I went out to bat, I didn't want to be the guy that got a duck, or I wanted to score 100 every time I went to bat, and trying to figure out the situations. Hawke Cup game, Test match for New Zealand was pretty much the same for me in terms of my mindset. And often those club games or Hawke Cup games can be tougher because the opposition's like brutal on you. They're hoping you fail, obviously, and they're giving it to you a little bit, and you're like, shit, I don't want to be the guy that fails here or gives in, and it's kind of, I liked having that competitive edge, and I wanted to not dominate, but like I wanted to score runs every time I went out to bat, and I felt the same nerves before going out to bat in that game as I would in the Test Championship final. They were a little bit more in the final, but I always had those nerves, and I guess that shows that I still cared and I wanted to play the game.
Yeah. How did Devi go going back down into that level of people chipping at him? Did he just give it? He would just give it straight back?
Gave it back, and he. I've seen him slay some attacks too. He gets stuck into them and smashes them around the park. And,
well, he's almost better in that situation, eh? Like if you get stuck into Devi, and I remember this from when we played at school, because I used to bat with him quite a lot in that middle order, and I remember like if a bowler sort of got on top of him and gave him some stick, I was like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. And then he'd charge the next one and put it over his head for 6, and then he'd give it back to him, and then. Yeah, he'd almost just like, he was only a little fella, like he was a lot smaller than what he is now, and he's still not a big guy, he used to just dominate, and he would just literally get these bowlers out at inside their own head, and they'd just run in and just bowl them half volleys all day because he'd just dominate them mentally, and it all came down to that fieriness. They had to dig at him first normally. And then he'd just go, oh, well, fuck you.
Yeah. Gets
Bring it
himself
on.
going. Yeah. And then they end up getting scared of him while he's dominating there. I used to love how he did that. He could change the game pretty quickly by playing that aggressive style. And he's certainly not the type of bloke you want to get too fired up, because it almost brings the best out of him, and he gets on that run.
He's a very clean hitter of the ball, eh? Like, can hit a ball a long way.
He's a proper athlete. Like, he was a pretty good rugby player.
Yep.
I won't talk about that too much.
Yeah.
He thought he was gone.
Yeah.
But like, amazing athlete, like, and fielder. Like, he could move around the field unbelievably well, diving, left-handed, fire it into the stumps. Like, he sort of had a bit of everything, and obviously could bowl and bat. That's a huge asset to the team, being able to do all three disciplines and do them at a very, very high standard. So, yeah,
and definitely someone you want on your team. You don't really want to get on the other end of him.
Yeah,
when he's fired up.
Yeah, I've seen some good battles over the years.
Yeah. Have you got any like memorable sledges that you remember through your time that you heard from? I imagine you were never much of a sledger when we played, and I imagine that continued throughout your career, but you must have heard some good ones in your time, or some that have been directed at you from oppositions and whatnot. Stand out?
There's a few. I know the Aussies like to get stuck in, and
they love it.
They do love it. Yeah, they do love it. Tim Southey's got some good little witty things he comes up with every now and then, but I think it was my second or third test match, and we were playing Aussie, and we were at Seddon Park, and I'd sort of gone pretty steady in the first test match against them. I think I got a duck in about 35, and I was like, okay, this is good tough test cricket. But walking out on Seddon Park, my home ground, I was opening the batting, had my partner with me, and Ricky Ponting sort of joined in our little huddle that we had going, and off we walked out to the wicket, and he basically walked me out there telling me this will be the last time you ever walk out to open the batting for New Zealand. And he pretty much told me how shit I was in that first game, and it was a proper spray, and I was like, holy hell, like, I love Ricky Ponting. He's one of my idols growing up, and I thought, yeah, this is intense, but this is pretty cool. He's having a crack at me here. What's going on? Like, does he think he's trying to get it to me? And I'm going, this is cool. I'm ready for this challenge, eh? Like, I'd like to show one of my idols that I can play the game. Come on, mate. Here we go. So I wouldn't say it barred me up. Like, it was fairly intimidating, don't get me wrong, but it's sort of like, I want punters to like me here. Let's try guts this out and score some runs. And I think I got a few. I managed to get a few off there, and it was a decent enough test, but it was pretty intimidating, Ricky Ponting walking out with me while I'm opening the batting.
See, I always think of that, and I think, from an outside point of view, like, for him to come and do that, you've obviously shown something that, he's made the effort to do that, you know what I mean? And I see that as more of he's trying to intimidate you because he knows that you could be a genuine threat, rather than, like, if you were a bunny, like, say, he's not going to care, because he wouldn't waste his breath or energy, because he'd be like, this dude's trash anyway, like, he's bugger all, we're going to get him out.
He's used the energy to come over there, and I'd like to think of it like that.
Ricky Ponting was scared of you.
We'll stick with that.
We'll put that out on the podcast. Ricky Ponting feared BJ Watling in his second test match against Australia. Great headline.
Absolutely no doubt.
But what was it like? I suppose early on in your career, because you were still pretty young, like going in and playing these games against guys like Ricky Ponting and stuff that were just so influential in the game of cricket through those formative years when you were at school, and and whatever sport you're into, that time of your life, you're the biggest fan, right? And then very quickly you go from being the biggest fan to, oh shit, I've got to play against them, or I'm playing alongside them. Who's some of the guys that you were like, wow, I can't believe I'm on the field with, when you kind of first started your international career?
Yeah, it was exciting. Like, I remember going home one night and having a year under care and going, mate, I just played Ricky Ponting. How cool was that? Like, we were talking about him 5 years ago. He's playing this unbelievable innings somewhere, and like, it was a pretty cool feeling that you were out there playing against these guys. At the time, who was there? I remember watching Dale Steyn and going, would hate to face that, like, and getting the opportunity to challenge yourself against it. Like, him and Morne Morkel running in, one's pretty quick, the other's tall and quick. It's like, holy hell! Like, we're in this now. We're playing Test cricket, and but that's kind of what you grow up to try and do. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
dream of it when you're young. You want to be sort of these guys, and finally you've got the opportunity, and I just remember it being exciting and just wanting to do well and enjoying the challenge. Often it was bloody fucking scary. But at the end of it, you sat down, you had a beer with some of these guys, and you sort of shared a couple of yarns, and it was amazing. And I've loved literally the 12 years that I got to do that for the Black Caps and some of the guys you got to play against, and having those little conversations over a beer every now and then was I mean, that's an experience not a lot of people get to get, and I'm hugely grateful that I was around for so long to be able to do that with so many people, and most of them from New Zealand, the likes of Vittori. Used to love sitting down with Chris Martin after game, and we had some good yarns. And I mean, yeah, these types of guys that you got to share the shed with is.
As a keeper, did you have like? I watched your retirement video when that went up, where the boys sharing the messages, and Tim Southey spoke about the special relationship you have with the bowling group. As a keeper, that you must have a pretty good. What I suppose you kind of by necessity you kind of have to have a pretty tight relationship with your bowlers to get a real understanding of what they're going through, what they're working on, what their kind of plan is, and that kind of thing. Are you heavily involved with the bowling group as a wicket keeper in a team environment?
Yeah. I get along with Tim great, Wags, Trent.
The list goes on, right?
There's a lot of bowlers, and I guess over the years you start to build your relationship, and you kind of understand what they're trying to do, and you might pick up on a few things that you might think are worthy of telling them. Sometimes Tim can be in white ball mode and keep his arm low, and it's sort of one of those Yorkers that he's so good at. Getting him back in red ball mode, he figured that out early on in his career, that he had to be a little bit taller, more over the top of the red ball. And so you try to keep an eye on things like that, but you start to build a relationship where you know when you might be thinking he's going for the three-quarter ball or the outswinger. And I mean, it's amazing over a period of time, the things that they've got so much better too. Like from when they started, their learnings, and you just watch them, and it's just, I had the best seat in the house to watch some of Trent's big in-swingers through the right-handers' gates, and Tim going wide in the crease, drawing out a drive from some of the best players in the world. And yeah, I mean, keeping a Wags is a fully different experience too. He's just coming around the wicket. And I eventually, after doing it for a couple of years, Wags, is there any point in me standing on the offside, or should I just stand down legs? So you kind of build these relationships with the bowlers that come in, and they're a great group, and they're certainly, I've certainly enjoyed my time with them, and I'll catch up with them hopefully for a couple of beers over the years, and a few barbecues and reminisce.
There'll be some bloody good memories to share too. Like, you talk about, those three players there in terms of, what they're kind of known for, and like you said, you're the best seat in the house for, over a decade, and those guys have been in their absolute prime through that period, and you're going to have some special moments that you're going to be able to reflect back on with those guys over a beer. And that's I think I've just from listening, like, that seems to be quite a common theme in cricket, to the team share a beer afterwards and really connect. I suppose you spend 5 days out there in kind of the heat of the battle. It's almost like a respect thing that you get together, because in rugby it's not so much like that anymore. It doesn't tend to happen. You might go in the sheds and have a beer, but it's pretty fleeting generally. Sometimes you don't even go in, because you've got a tight schedule to fly out somewhere else and then prepare for next week or whatever. But when you're on these big tours and that kind of thing, is that something that's still strong in the game of cricket? Is like that sharing that beer or that changing room with the guys you've gone to battle with?
It's definitely not the same as probably when we first started.
So there's a shift in that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cricket now. There's a lot of travel. Different teams come in. And so it's definitely changed throughout the years that I've been playing, and often, but we had a beer with the West Indies recently last year. They came in, I think it was the end of the tour, so it fitted in nicely, and we've had a few catch-ups with the English boys, and the Aussies will step into their shed and have a beer, So it does happen occasionally. A lot of teams won't do it, and some teams will, and you just sort of pick your moments.
Oh, yes, it's still pretty similar to
yeah,
rugby then.
yeah. But
I suppose that's professional sport though, right? Like
it is moving faster.
Everyone's got to go somewhere
else.
else.
There's a schedule on,
and
there's a game in 5 days' time, 4 days' time, and so it is a little bit different. But we will still catch up with certain teams, especially if the tour is
coming
kind
to
of
an
ending
end.
there. But you want to catch up with the likes of Mitchell Stark, and you might hear something that might be useful to your game, and these boys, they also play a lot of cricket at the IPL together, and the likes of Kane will be catching up with some of the boys there. We do it every now and then.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Who's the best team to share the shed with afterwards? Who are a good time?
Actually, West Indies were pretty fun last
Yeah.
time.
They seem like they don't have too much stress in their life.
They're pretty relaxed. It was quite a chilled environment there. But the English boys, we have a few beers with the English boys, and they're pretty. I don't know. I find them quite similar to us, and they enjoy a pint after their games and have a bit of catch up with them. We played them a few times recently over the years too.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the West Indies just because I like Chris Gale. I just love the way that. Just that swagger that he's got, that he's just like, to me, he's a tall version of Baz. Like, he just goes out there and just like, just wants to impose himself on the game. And some of the innings that he's played, phenomenal.
Crazy,
Such a clean hitter of the ball. He must just have amazing hand-eye coordination because there's not a lot of footwork that goes on. He just sees it and hits it.
Sees it. Yeah, he's strong too. So most of the time he hits it over the rope and. But he's a pretty relaxed type of guy. And I think he must love the game because what is he now, 41 or like 42ish? Like, no offense there, but and he's still going strong. Like he must have scored 25 T20 or something, which is crazy. Yeah. But I do watching. I love watching Gale bat. He is an entertainer, that is for sure.
Yeah. In terms of about that, like you've just retired and. How old are you now, Beach? 35? 6, yeah. So, were you surprised when Baz retired? Did the team see it coming? Or, like, because I didn't. Because I was like, he was in his prime. Like, he was,
30, just smashed the Aussies for the quickest 100 of all time. And it was obviously, he obviously felt like it was time. And he sort of mentioned a few things kind of leading into that. And he definitely had a few more years left of Test cricket left in him, but surprised, a little bit at the time, but you could see he was looking for other things, and he felt like it was his time. And I mean, what he did for New Zealand cricket throughout those years was probably pretty bloody draining. I'd imagine there was a fair bit going on for that captaincy stint, and yeah.
Yeah, because he mentioned that, like, the way that he led, and you mentioned that there too, like, he would be down in the lobby. He was very relationship-driven, and it took a lot of time and effort for him to be able to connect with all of his players, and that's the way he wanted to lead. And, he had 3 kids back at home and a wife, and, that, no doubt, being that immersed into a leadership role, it would be hard to balance that, and to balance that home life and those big tours. And he played 100 tests on the trot. Like, that's phenomenal. To be able to do that from a selection point of view, from an injury point of view, with all the tours and all the travel, to make himself available and to be good enough to be selected for 100 tests straight is pretty impressive, and it's I guess a really big testament to his character
and keeping too.
Half
of them too. So I mean, he put a lot into that team in that career, and I mean it was a phenomenal career, and. He played a lot of cricket, so he probably played a lot more cricket than I had at 33 or 34 whenever he sort of decided to retire from Test cricket. And cricket is a mentally draining game and physically as well. So
especially when you're keeping as well. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And he'd obviously felt like it was the right time for him and his family.
That transition to Kane, that was like, I don't know, it's probably the easiest decision of who was going to be captain after Brendon, from the outside looking in, was, and in terms of the internal group, was it just like you knew years before that the next captain would be Kane? Is that something that
had hadn't really thought about it, to be
Yeah.
fair. But yeah, I mean, Kane's a great leader, and yeah, he's got the cricket nous, and he it was probably they probably would have been thinking whether it was going to put too much pressure on his batting.
Yeah.
And it's ended up going, I think, the other way. I think he averages, I don't know, something ridiculous while he's captaining anyway. So, I mean, he's two different leaders, Baz and Kane, but that transition there was reasonably seamless.
Yeah.
I can't think of too many issues that came from it. And what Baz had created was probably a core group of leaders to help Kane through, and he had Tim and Trent and Tommy Lath sort of building up, and he's a great leader too. And yeah, there was a group there that was reasonably stable that could probably take the team forward with Kane there. And I think we've all figured out that Kane's a pretty serious leader.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, they're completely different in terms of their personalities and styles, but not a huge amount has changed within the group. I think we're obviously quite consistent now in the way that we're performing, and that's probably through Kane's consistency in general. And yeah, it's flowed on down throughout the team.
Yeah, is Kane a very lead by action leader? Because yeah, he just seems to whatever needs to be done at the time. You can kind of assess the situation, and when he's involved in the game, with generally with the bat, he just performs. He does exactly what the team needs at that point in time. Like, he'll up the run rate when we need to. He'll slow it down. He'll be patient. Like, he just seems to have this unbelievable knack to do the right thing at the right time. Does that sum him up?
Yeah. I mean, he is a genius with the bat. It's the amount of runs he's scored in the last year itself is crazy. He talks enough. I think he's a good read of the situation and probably what needs to be said. It's still it's calm and relaxed. He'll bring intensity when I think he's just a good read of people and the game.
In the moments.
Yeah, and the moments. And like I said, that consistency is kind of what he does with the bat. Does it with the ball, and it does it pretty much throughout his life, pretty much. It's all reasonably consistent, and it brings him into the team, and it's to have that. Yeah, he scores runs, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes that he's dealing with as well.
Yeah, he's I think they did some real in-depth analysis on his batting during the 2019 World Cup, and they were just showing the decisions he makes and how late he plays the ball, and when they really slowed it right down, and they had some, I can't remember who the commentators were, but the top, the ex-top batters, and they're talking about the things that he does and how difficult it is to do that, and why he's so successful. It was just it was pretty mind-blowing to see how extremely talented and gifted and good that he, and patient and headstrong that he is to be able to perform at that level. And yeah, there's no surprise that he sits at up the top of the world test batting, or just about all formats. He's in the top five.
Most
he would
forms,
be. Yeah. So that's a real testament to be able to sit in the top of Test cricket, and then for that to be able to transfer that down into something like 2020, and you couldn't get more different. They're almost not like even the same sport, right? Be like an All Black prop playing sevens. Yeah, that's probably a good analogy for the difference in the way that you bat.
He's worked it out over the years, isn't he? And it's impressive the way he will adjust from that Test match in England with the swinging ball to potentially an IPL game in India, but he's worked out over the years his methods.
Yeah, his routines.
How to perform here and here and here, and what I'm going to do for this 2020 game. How I get my power game going, and then how do I bring it back into playing it so late. And that's the genius of the guy, is the way he's figured out how he's going to approach different things at different times, and just keep scoring runs consistently. It is crazy, because the amount of cricket he ends up playing is so much, and he just keeps scoring runs for fun.
He just finds a way.
He finds a way. He finds a way.
It's pretty impressive, and it's wicked to watch. I love watching him go about his batting, and I think that innings he played in him and Roscoe at the end there in that World Test Championship.
Hey, they had
final.
to fight there. Like, his lead up was.
Yeah.
He'd probably tell you, but his lead up wasn't where he wanted to be. Like, and you're watching a bat, you go, he's in it right, and he's getting a little bit frustrated.
Yeah.
Nets are doing a little bit of swinging around, and he's sort of going, didn't quite feel it, and you could just sense he was. But then he rocks up to the game, switches on within 20 balls.
He's worked
figures
it
out his method. Yeah, how am I going to deal with these bowlers, Bumrah, and this wicket? And both innings, I think he scored a crucial 40 odd in the first, and then obviously saw us home to win it in the second. And I was like, how did he do that? Like, it's like you weren't feeling it before, and then you've turned up and played 2 magnificent innings for us to help us win the final. And it's crazy how he figures things out, and he'll work them out as he's out there. He'll do a little tweak, and off he goes. He's got it for the day. And yeah, it's crazy to watch, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and see that's coming from the extremely trained eye. Like you're there, and living that moment with him, and you're playing at that same level, and if you can see how difficult it is. Like that's really like testament to how hard it is to do what he does in those moments. But were you extremely nervous that being the next one in, or was there a point where you're like, oh, sweet, like if I go in now, I'm pretty comfortable, like we can get this home?
Nah, pretty nervous. Like we were sort of 2 for 48, so I had the pads on reasonably early, and I was like, whoa. And the wicket wasn't a good one for scoring out. I don't think any team had really scored above 2 and over that well, and it was a tricky surface, so we actually got ourselves in a tricky little spot there. So I was reasonably nervous if there was too much to do, and I'm nervous before every time I go out to bat. And like I was still thinking, should it be cool to go out there and have to do this myself? It'd be amazing, but do I really want it? No. Like it'd be great if these 2 guys just finish it off. And there's a few moments there. Kane chipped one up in the air and got a bit sloggy on one. I don't know what he was thinking. I've had words to him.
Don't do that to me.
But the guy, like he was right. We talked about it afterwards, and it was about let's finish it here, because the next guy will. Yeah. And that's the confidence we had around the team. Is if I don't, this guy will. And that's kind of not a thing in cricket you want, because you want to be the guy that finishes it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was definitely nervous, but also thinking I'd love to be there. I'd love to be that guy to finish off. Yeah,
it would have been a brilliant way to end your career, right? In terms of you went right through that rise. You spoke about it on Stephen Seamus' podcast. They mentioned that your career kind of mapped out, and your sort of grit, determination, the kind of person you were, is you've kind of just gone up this big arc with the team, and you're kind of like, I saw something pop up as like, how did BJ Watling be so good and become invisible at the same time? Like you were like just there and consistently there all the time and performing when the team needed you to, but you were never someone that was spoken a lot about, but then extremely well respected by your peers, like in the group. It was very clear to see that the way it come through media, especially around your retirement time and the way the guys spoke about you. Yes, you'd like, most people will say, oh, they're just saying that because he's retiring, but there's genuine care there. You can see that, and just the fact that they make the effort to do something like that, to send you off and to wish you well on your last test, is must be pretty special for you to be a big part of the rise of New Zealand cricket and to take it all the way, be a part of that team that took it all the way to the top to be the best in the world. Like, that must be pretty special and pretty humbling for you to have been a part of that.
Yeah, definitely pretty special. And I'm glad the boys all said kind things. It is a nice feeling, but I guess you certainly don't set yourself to try and get all that stuff. I'd like to think that I was just purely myself throughout the 10 years. Obviously, you kind of change and grow as you go and mature. But it is obviously nice to hear good things. It's not something I went out searching for. I just wanted to play the game, win the game, and had no plans on retiring and winning the championship. And it kind of it all unfolded, and it was awesome. It was a great way to finish. I'd sort of made a decision last summer for ND. It had become enough. 2 kids at home, different pressures in life, different focuses. I always found cricket that I had to be like bang. I had to be right there with the game and putting this in and putting that there. And it just got everything just sort of got a bit tougher and started to get a bit tired. And I sort of knew that around March after the ND season had finished, and it just so happened to be that Australia didn't want to go to South Africa and lost their Test series against India, and we had another 3 games in England and a World Cup Test Championship final to go to. So, and then contracts were finishing then anyway. So I was like, well, I'm not going to
Stars align.
Yeah, they needed to name their contracts, and so it was like, yep, this is my time. I'm more than content with what my career's been, and it was time for someone else to take the baton. So it all just worked out quite nicely, but it certainly wasn't planned on my side.
Yeah. No, that's...
I mean, we planned on winning the thing, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. Was there a real confidence in the group that you were going to win leading into that? Or was it like, fuck, we're going to give it a best shot, but, sort of on the fence? Or were you like, no, we can fucking win?
Definitely, we thought we could win. There's no doubt about that. The funny thing with Test cricket is it's 5 days, isn't it?
Hard.
So you can't just go into the day one and go, we're gonna win this. So there's definitely a level of confidence, but it is, and Kane talks about it all the time. It's just try be in that one moment, that one session there.
Yeah,
we'll deal with the next session after that, and deal with the next session after that, and then. The game takes so long to get to a point where you're like, here's the game. This is what we need to do to win it. This is what we need to do to draw it, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that's where Test cricket, you just can't get too far ahead of yourself, because it literally takes one session. You could be winning that, and then it's flipped on its head and you're losing. And so you just stay on for that particular moment, deal with that ball, and you move on, and you don't sort of get too far ahead about, we're going to win this thing. So, and we've done that reasonably well, because it just changes so fast. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that, because I never thought about it until you mentioned it there. Like, yes, you can have confidence in going, but you can play for 3 or 4 days, and then the moment of like deciding the game could come on day 3, or it could come on day 5, and then you're like, oh shit, here's the game right here, right now. Do you quite often feel that, like as a player? Are you like, oh shit, here we are. This is what we've built towards. Like this next half hour of play here right now is the game, and it's on the line.
I mean, it happened in the final there. That's, I mean, 2 down overnight. What are they? I don't know what they were. 50, maybe 50 ahead, 40 ahead. So the game's kind of nowhere, but there's still a lot of ways it can go. And we managed to pick up 2 in that first hour, and straight away, we're in the game. Straight away, we've got a long tail here. We get a couple more, we're well in this game. And so from that point on, you're in the game. We played a game against Pakistan at Seddon Park, and it was 4 days and 2 sessions into it. They were 1 down, chasing 350 or something that would set them in the. But they were 1 down after, and it was sort of just heading towards a draw. And we literally took 9 wickets in the space of 2 hours to win the game. And it sort of built. It was an amazing game of cricket, because you just sort of didn't see it coming. They were 200 for 1, 200 for 2. Yeah. The wicket was pretty docile, and all of a sudden, bang bang. And as soon as you get these bang bangs in cricket, you know, bang, we could pounce here. Yeah. And that was one of the games where it all just kind of happened. So it's hard to get too far ahead of yourself in Test cricket, because there's often a lot of cricket to be played in short spaces of time sometimes.
I bet. Just as we sort of start to wrap it up, like one question I did want to ask, and I know you've probably been asked this a number of times since retiring and being a keeper, or around your retirement of being a keeper, is like your slip cauldron that you would have. So I just want to ask, I want 2 slip cauldrons. So one purely on skill. So the most skillful will go right through to gully. We'll go to point. So we'll go skill from first slip round to point, and then just company, just guys that you really enjoy. And some of them might cross over too, obviously, but we'll go skillful first.
Yeah, I'd say Ross at first. He's obviously taken. Pretty sure he's got the most catches for New Zealand, and he's done a fantastic job there for a number of years. And my second would be kind of between Mark Craig and Daryl Mitchell.
Oh yeah.
Very, very much on par in terms of their skill, and Daryl's got buckets, and so did Mark Craig.
Yeah, Daryl's an extremely good catcher, right?
Yeah, and third, I'd have Daryl and Pidge. Mix them up. Whatever they're comfortable with, second or third. Gully would have to be Kane, I think. Yeah, he hasn't dropped too many in there, and some of the ones that he's grabbed have been crazy good.
Yeah.
Like the best catches you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Point would be Guppy.
Yeah.
Like gun.
Oh,
yeah. Gun mover, fast.
He's like hands. A tall Jonty Rhodes.
Yeah. I mean, he could probably slip into my slip cordon too, to be fair, at some point. Very good mitts.
Yeah. Tim Southey's unbelievable for a bowler.
Yeah, he's stepped in there and made it his own, and he was going to join my other
right, here we go.
So first slip, I'd have Roscoe. We've had some bloody good yarns over the years, and he's taught me a few things about the share market in that time.
Nice.
So we've had a good relationship in there, and second would be Pidge.
Yep.
Me and Pidgey had some good yarns over a couple of darts and some beers at the end of each game, and loved having a yarn to him. Third, I jumped with Tim.
Yep.
He tells a few good stories, and he's a pretty witty guy. Like if you say something, he's so quick to get something funny out, and you're caught. Like I've given up even trying around him, but just boom, take it, and then shut it down. Just don't let him go any further, because he'll get you again. He'll get you again. Kane's a good mate of mine. I'll keep Kane at Gully.
Yeah.
Good chat. Probably try and get some tips off him with the bat.
Yeah.
If you have yarn, and it's always easy to suggest something if he was at Gully. Point? How would I have a point? I mean, Chris Harris would be pretty good there. I did play a little bit with him when I was younger, and played against him. Played against the little inducky leg spinner things, and I used to remember watching him in the field, and he was an absolute gun at that point and hitting the stumps. And I remember catching up with Harry when I was younger a few times.
Yeah, good
throw Chris Harris in there. Go old school.
Yeah, nice. One thing I did want to mention, then, just like thinking about it now, Devon Conway. So similar upbringing to you, like a lot of people won't know, but you were born in South Africa and then came across. Devon Conway, similar situation, but obviously moved to New Zealand later in life, and has just had an unbelievable start to his international career. Did you see that coming? That transition from what he was doing at domestic cricket into into the international scene?
I don't know if the amount of runs he was scoring in domestic cricket, you're like, this guy definitely can play.
Yeah.
And he's jumped straight into international stuff, and he just looks like he's playing the same game, which is, and he's a pretty relaxed sort of guy from what I've got to sort of know of him.
Yeah, because you would have spent a lot of time
not
with
a huge amount, no.
Yeah.
But every now and then, and he's a lovely guy, and he's kind of, don't know what he did to find the form or the run of form, because it's been about 3 or 4 years where he hasn't stopped scoring runs, and you go, I'd love to be doing that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could kind of see it, but you never know until you actually see it in the international stuff and different surfaces. But he's just come like scoring a 200 on Test debut at Lords. That's phenomenal. What a way to start. And I mean, the way I don't know what it is, but his mindset is, and he's figured out his game so nicely, which is
he's very similar to Kane too, right? Like, well, in terms of being able to transfer between all formats, like he can guts out a Test innings, and then he can, build nicely in a one-day innings, and then send it, and then in T20 he can come out and bash it from ball one. So like he's got that range in his game in terms of being able to switch on and focus between different formats. But one thing that like amazed me watching him score that double century at Lords was how he would like get a short ball and he'd duck it, and then it was like he sees the ball in slow motion. He'll get halfway to him and he's like, oh, actually I can play that, and he'd just fucking flick it for four. And I'm like, how the hell do you do that? Like it literally looks like he slows down time, and then he's like, clearly doesn't even look like he's going to play a shot, and then he's like, oh no, I'll hit that one, and he flicks it around the corner for four.
I wouldn't have a clue how he does that. If I'm ducking the ball, I'm going down, getting right down. I think he's just seeing the ball so well at the moment that, every shot he's playing generally is hit in the middle of the bat. And he's just figured out a way. He's figured out his method, which is completely different to Kane or Roscoe, and he's figured out his way of scoring runs. And it looks to me like he's just sticking to that plan. And then he obviously does it well. He transfers to white ball stuff, and he's got his methods there. But his game looks quite simple, yet very effective. He's just playing the shots that he needs to, and he's making good decisions basically. Yeah, and just over and over again he's making them. And to score 200 on debut, you've got to be in a good mental state to do that. And he obviously is.
Pretty impressive, eh? Well, that kind of wraps up all our talking points, I think. We've covered most of them. We did. I did have there that I suppose your transition from South Africa across to Tokoroa, but I think we covered a lot sort of through those formative years of like high school and stuff. And for those listeners out there, if you want to hear a little bit more about that sort of pathway for BJ, if you jump on Stephen Seamus's podcast Between Two Beers, I think they covered it, sort of quite nicely in that transition over. And I guess to touch on it briefly, like you spoke about the freedom that you got in terms of, moving to Token, to a small town, into a little community of just being able to go to the shop and that kind of thing. I think, for someone that's been to South Africa a lot with rugby, it's a hard world to live in, and to be brought up in. So I'm sure that you enjoyed that shift down to Tokoroa.
I loved it. And like you say, that freedom to just be able to jump on my bike and go to the store and grab some lollies there. And I know me and Mum certainly enjoyed that shift to Tokoroa, but I'll be grateful for Mum sending me to Hamilton Boys High. I mean, that
would have been interesting. What would have happened if you were at Forest View? There wouldn't have been much of a cricket program there.
We did have to shift around for the cricket and try and get. We had to go to Taupo every now and then and to Hamilton, and so there wasn't a huge amount of cricket in Tokoroa, which was a letdown. But I certainly enjoyed my time there. And I probably wouldn't have it any other way. I think that freedom was massive for us.
It's a bouncing pot of talent too, Tokoroa. Like the amount of like athletes that have come out of there and all different sports, like throughout history and time, it's amazing. Like it's for a small town, the amount of All Blacks that's produced, and netballers, and and then Potato, you throw that at that, which is just up the road, and people like Wayne Smith and Honey Hidemi, Smiler, like they're all from there as well. It's just an amazing breeding ground of talent down there. So and then they've got famous Black Cat now too. The little boy from South Africa that moved over.
I'll take that.
Nice. No, thanks very much for coming on, Beach. It's wicked to reconnect again. Like I suppose we've kind of crossed paths over the last sort of 20 years that we've been out of school at different times, a few different pubs here and there, and talking shit. But it's good to to sit down and to digress into some of these topics with you, and for the listeners to be able to hear some really good insight and background into your journey, into your cricket, and also that team environment. And I think it's a testament to you of the way that your teammates look at you, and through talking to Timmy and to Baz on their episodes, the listeners will know the impact that you had on the group, and you should be extremely proud of the career that you had. And I've really enjoyed watching it from somebody that played alongside you at school, and I've always kept an eye out for for you and the way that you've been going, and I've really enjoyed being loosely along for the ride just through that relationship that we did have. So Yeah, no, thank you very much, mate, for what you've done for New Zealand cricket.
Oh, cheers, mate. No, appreciate those kind words, and it's been bloody good to catch up again. And yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed having a good conversation.
Yeah,
Over a good coffee too. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, nice. Oh, and you got some good George to take home too. So you got a bottle of gin there and Fog City IPA, which is named after our city here in Hamilton.
That is going to be bloody handy in retirement.
Yeah. Enjoy that treadmill, mate.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much, bro.